Okay, so today I'm showing you how to do the homemade sauerkraut. And so that I don't bore you, I have already chopped up my cabbage here. And you finely chop the cabbage, and then I add 2 carrots and 1 medium-sized onion. If you have big chunks like this, it's probably better for you to just eat those while you're chopping everything else up, because the smaller and finer the cabbage is, the faster it will start to break down and ferment. And so you do want it to be fine. Some people like the chunkier stuff, but again, it's not going to really break down and ferment as fast. So it'll be great as a fresh vegetable. Probably not quite as as tender as the rest of the pieces, and you want them to ferment at the same time. So when you get your cabbage all chopped up and you have it in your bowl, you would add either your Celtic sea salt or your Himalayan salt, or regular. You can use a regular salt. I don't prefer regular salt at all myself, but it has been used. And so you would put in, usually this is like about 3 to 4 tablespoons, depending on the size of your hand, and that is how much you would use in the cabbage. And so you're going to put that in and start actually massaging and really getting it so that it starts breaking down. So you're, usually I'll massage it for 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. The more you massage it, the more you can feel it actually starting to become watery and really breaking down and starting the fermentation process. It starts to become translucent or transparent. So you would do this for 4 or 5 minutes, and then I usually leave it sit for about an hour, because it continues breaking down and then it starts to create the salt brine. When I come back after an hour or so, and I cover it, of course, to make sure no dust or bacteria or bugs or anything get in there. And so when you have finished that, you would take your jar here. I like doing it in a jar because for me, I go through it every couple weeks. I make a new batch. And so I like putting them in these jars here. This it'll make about 2 jars of the sauerkraut in this size of a jar. So what you're going to do, and so you can just you can just pretend that this is starting to ferment, and I've had it here for an hour. It would be much juicier. So you're going to pack it into your jar, and you're going to see how much salt brine is on top. Right now, of course, I don't have that much because I didn't give it the time. But you would have, this would be a little juicy coming up in here. And so if you have, if it's not completely covered in water, it will start to rot. So you have to make sure that you have the salt brine covering it. So you would press it down, clean your jar, and make a little salt brine. So your salt brine will be about that same amount, 3 or 4 tablespoons per quart of water. So that'd be like 4 cups. And so you want the brine to be quite salty. So you would press this down here, and then you would make sure that your salt water is covering it. One of the things you can also do is save a piece of cabbage and put it on top here, and just float the cabbage, push it down, the cabbage leaf, save a piece of the leaf, and push it down with like a little shot glass would probably fit in here. And then you could, the shot glass would help hold it down. And then you don't want to put a solid lid on here, because it has to ferment and it'll create gas. So you need it to breathe. So you would put a cloth, everything has to be clean and sanitized. So you put a clean cloth on that. But something heavy, like a little shot glass or something, to hold that cabbage leaf down would work. But for myself, we go through it so fast. You're opening it and testing it and tasting it every day, so that by the time it's actually fermented, it's gone down to, half, which is why I make it by the jar every week or so, make a couple jars. Because by the time it actually turns into sauerkraut, you can start digging into a newer, fresher jar. while the other half jar ferments to what it truly should be tasting like. And usually that would last, or it would take about 3 weeks, depending on how warm your room is. The sauerkraut takes about 3 weeks, and it'll last, once it's set up the perfect fermentation stage for you, it'll last about easily 2 months in the fridge. If you're making it in larger batches, it will last longer. Anyway, that's how I do it. Okay, have fun.